Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In today's video, we're going to have a look at the NRL SuperCoach stock market for round 5. As I alluded to in my previous stock market video, I have taken this idea from SuperCoach with DR and AFL SuperCoach channel. I find this information is pretty useful for me navigating my way around AFL Supercoach, who to buy, who to sell. And I guess, yeah, I've taken a couple of things from it as well around trying to use some symbols and stuff and yeah, try to make it a bit entertaining as well as informative. So we'll see how we go anyway. Um, so let's get into the video. So we'll start off with the, I guess, premium hookers. And I guess for the purpose of this video in particular, premium hooker is going to be anyone over 500k. I have put the sort of brackets for the different positions up on the title as well, just I guess to get familiar with the notations and stuff. So kicking off with Wade Egan. So Wade Egan's at 591k. Obviously coming back from a head knock. So I've given him the pod symbol there, so the P pod. I guess he's a potential point of difference option there at the hooker position. Tom Starling is next on the list, so 536k, averaging 64, 3 round average of 60, so he's still got a bit of money to make. Got him as a pot as well. Jeremy Marshall King back from his suspension, so 610k. His average is based off, I think, one game essentially. But yeah, he's another pot option now that he's back playing. Reece Robson, I know, is a somewhat popular option as well, 648k. Probably out of, I guess, the pot options, he's the one I wouldn't go with, but some people might, so happy to put him in under that. So we've got Appy Coruscant from the Tigers, 585k. You can see his 3 round average is improved, so obviously a bit of a flat one first up, but does have a high break even. So I've got the weight symbol on him there, so not as in lift and weight, but as in weight and for his price to drop to get on. But also as well, weight if you do have him, because he will. That I think that average will lift. So Blake Brayley, I've got him as an avoid. I think there's just better options. As you can see, his average is a bit lower. He's going to lose some cash, so I'd stay away from that pick. Reed Marnie, so averaging 66, so he's another pot option. Does have the highest break even of those though, so you can wait a bit to get on Reed if you're looking at him as your probably second hooker. And then Damien Cook and Harry Grant, I've got them both with the gun symbol. Right, so they're probably the two that most people would want to target for the end of season. Obviously, with their high break evens, there's no need to rush and get on. Obviously, Harry Grant's price has peaked after his flat performance in round 4 as my captain, but that's by the by. And Jaden Bradley I've got as an avoid. Obviously, that average is still recovering from the HIA he had a couple of weeks ago. So stay away from him until that average picks up. So on to the mid-range or more cheaper options at hooker. So anyone less than 500k is in this category. So you can see quite a few avoids here. So the sort of nice break evens for Corey Pakes, Jaden Sullivan, Mitch Kenny, probably would suggest avoiding them. Mitch Kenny's probably the one out of those that you could potentially hold if you've got him. He is making a bit of cash, but yeah, I probably haven't actually noted that here, but I probably have Luke ahead of him as a better option. So Garlic also an avoid. He's not getting big minutes for the Storm off the bench, so probably not much value there. Cody Nikorima I've got as a sell. So just like I suppose, he's probably not going to get big minutes now that Jeremy Marshall King's back. Unfortunately had that head knock in the game against the Broncos, so he's one to get out of if you got him in. Similar with Hodgson, you can give him the chop. I think he's, average isn't up there. He's sort of in no man's land. He's not making money. As you can see, his break even and average are pretty much level. So you can give him the axe, I think. Sonny Luke, I've got him there as the HIA, so the dizzy looking guy symbol. Um, but, out of all of these cheap hookers, he is the one I would go with if I was looking to go for a cheap hooker at this stage of the year. Obviously, his price is a bit lower than these other guys. So, Corey Pakes might have a bit of money to make. You could argue same with Jaden Sullivan. But, yeah, I think, he definitely has that potential if he can get the minutes to make some cash. And the cheese, I've got him as a hold. So Brandon Smith, if you don't know who the cheese is, I have used a few nicknames here, but just to make things a bit easier, I thought maybe cheese was a bit more obvious than Smith. But I've got him as a weight as well, similar to Api Coruscant. Obviously, his price is going to dip, but just I think we can wait and see. So if you want to get him in, wait till his price bottoms out. If you got him like I do, feel free to hold him. So I guess with Mitch Kenny, that was the one I did have here as a potential avoid. But if you do have him, you could hold him. So um, yeah, so probably more of a weight symbol. Actually, I'm just playing around with a few other symbols to see what sticks at this point in time. So onto the front row forwards. And so at the top of the list here, we got Max King. So 589k, averaging 65, 68 over 3 rounds. So he's got a bit of a low break even of 38. He's definitely a nice little pod shout if you're looking for a discount keeper option. Um, yeah, he's definitely one you could look at. Payne Haas, so we're talking about the big boys here now, 712k, but look at that average, 78, 77 over the last 3 rounds, so that's consistent. He's still going to make a bit of cash. He's an absolute gun. So I know um, with Tohu Harris potentially out, I just realised I should have checked that before I started the video. So we'll just do a little quick check on the phone. While that's loading, we can probably continue because that'll obviously determine what one is there. Hang on, here we go. Team list. I forget when the Warriors are playing. Very professional outfit this is. Dragons, Dolphins, Broncos, Tigers, Warriors. Here we go. Yeah, so Tohu Harris's name. So, I think a few people were looking to go that trade, but I mean, if you've got the money to upgrade to Payne Haas, don't let anything stop you because he's a gun. James Fisher Harris from the Panthers. Um, guess we can group all these guys together just to speed things up a bit. Tommy Gilbert from Dolphins, Adam Fanor Blake. So I've gone with the acronyms here, so I will go through who they all are. Fanor Blake, he's at the Warriors in the front row. Regan Campbell Gillard, don't know why I was saying random, from the Eagles. So you can see they're all around that same price, just under 600k. Their price is pretty well leveled out with their averages, so they're all pod options at the front row forward position. But personally, I'd either go with King or one of the guns, two of the guns. So Joey Tarpany, he is a gun. So that higher price sort of dictates that. He's not going to move in price too much too soon, so feel free to get him in whenever you like. Ruben Cotter, 597k. He's a sell. He's still a few weeks away. So I just wanted to give him a mention while we've got the symbols going. But he'll probably have that gun symbol once he's back up and running. Big Tino, he's a gun. He will dip in value, but I guess the idea of identifying these gun players is you can really bring them in whenever. They might dip in value, but the points they're going to score you, as you can see with Tino, he's averaging 79 over the last 3 rounds, 69 for the season, which obviously these numbers aren't really overly different because some clubs have only played 4 rounds. Um, but yeah, I guess with this as well, I should have actually mentioned, Tino's on the bye this week. You'll see a few of the other Gold Coast Titans players mentioned do have that bye designation. But I forgot with Tino because I was just excited to use the gun symbol for him. And Tohu, so I had him as a hold or a sell, just depending on the injury. But he's named to play, so he's definitely a hold. He'll get the gun going forward. Definitely one of those, big boys in the front row. So looking at some mid-range options in the front row, so somewhere between 400 and 550k. So Jared Wallace has a negative break even, which could be tempting for a few people. But I've got the pass symbol there, so passing the ball, nice little rugby league pun, although I think it's a rugby union ball, but we're still working on getting all the symbols down. Big Stefano Ikamanu from the Tigers. So he's 423k, the same price as Wallace. You can see his overall average is a bit lower, but I guess that was also from his first round dropping that down a bit. Still has a nice little break even, but I think the ship has sailed with Stefano. So that's the boat icon means the ship has sailed on that trade. And this is based off the fact that you want to sort of bring people in if you're going to make money. Well, I guess when you're bringing people in, you want to either hopefully get 100, 150k out of them at least, or you think they're a keeper and you're going to get the points. And I don't think Stefano quite fits the bill in either respect. If you started with him like I did, you're cheering because he's already up about 100k in cash, and he is getting some nice points for if you are running a bit light in the front row, but definitely not a trading option. So I just wanted to use the ship symbol so that the ship is sailed on that trade. Gerbo, so Jake Trbojevic from the Seagulls. Yeah, I guess he's solid. The only thing, the advantage he has is that his DPP. I know a couple of these other guys are, so I probably should use that symbol with them as well. But yeah, he provides that swing, but he's not probably going to be anything too spectacular in terms of making money or scoring a lot of points. Christian Welsh, so a cheaper sort of pot option there. He had that one bad score a couple of weeks ago, so his break even is low. Could potentially be a hold on bringing in, but he definitely could do worse. Mitch Barnett I had as a pod, but it might be a bit more of a wait now that Tohu was named. Um, yeah, like I said, this will get better throughout, but yeah. So if he is getting minutes, he is definitely a pot option. He has the ability to score big, but there's a lot of mouths to feed there at the Warriors, so we'll wait and see. And Junior Paulo, so he's suspended. You can see his big drop in 3 round average was off the back of that monster game in round one. So I'd probably actually recommend selling Paulo, getting out of that pick, using that 500k to get some points on field over the next couple of weeks. So then on to the cheap options in the front row. So Matt Croker from the Knights is, I guess, probably the best option of the lot. 319k, so not bottom dollar cheapy by any respect, but over the 2 games that he has played, averaging 52, he's got a negative break even. And I got there, he's on the bubble. So basically, for those of you that are newer to SuperCoach, the bubble is what they refer to before their 3rd game when they start changing in price. So yeah, so the designation there will be for a few of the guys that have played just 2 games so far. Most have played 3 or 4, just depending on if they've had a bye or not, or a couple have had injuries. So that's always good to know too, that that's their starting price, and you can always use that as a base in terms of whether they're going to go up, down, sideways, by a lot, by a little, that sort of thing. So Isaac for Suamalawi, I'm going to learn that name by the end of the season. If I keep saying it often enough. So bottom dollar cheapy, which is very intriguing. Averaging 33 is not great, but he does have a negative break even. But he is on the bye this week, so Might be a sneaky one to look at for next week if you are looking for a little downgrade option to make an upgrade somewhere else. Shaq, so I've got him as a hold or a sell. It depends on your situation really. Um, if you're looking to sell, um, it's probably going to be going up to someone that's going to provide a few more points on field. Um, Maybe next week he'll definitely be a sell in the sense of looking at Isaac and getting him in the team. That could be a really nice downgrade, bank 80k. Um, but if he's sitting in your front row forward position, it's probably not the worst thing just to hold him. He looks really good in terms of the games he did play. Just unfortunately he's out injured. So yeah, for that reason, that's hold or sell. It's really up to you and your situation. So Sean Kepi, I've given him the cash cow symbol there. You can see he's 310k, averaging 40, break even at 10. So he's making a bit of cash. Um, I might have to come up with a bit of a slow burn symbol. I know DR has that for the guys that don't make a lot of money quick. So that might actually change for next week. But yeah, you got the cash cow. It's a bit hard to see the cash actually. It's one of the symbols that hasn't quite worked out. I'll do better in the past. Might just be a picture of some money and a cow maybe going forward. Jack Hetherington, so a cheap dual position option, but he is coming off the bench and not really getting a lot of time to do much. So here's a pass for me. I mean, you could use that DPP for something, perhaps like um, yeah, sort of like a Sean Kepi type, but I think I'd prefer to pay the extra 50 for Kepi to get those few extra bits of coin as well. Leo Thompson, so I guess I've given him the pod symbol there. It's a bit of a speculative one because as you can see, his average isn't as high as some of those other guys that we talked about, but I just like his style and how he goes about it. So I'm probably pumping him up a bit there, but yeah, give him the pod. Solo, so I think the ship has sailed on the Pasami Solo trade. So if you don't have him, I wouldn't be looking. But Josh Barkley, he's back. Um, so I wouldn't think Solo's going to, have a lot of work to do now. So yeah, stay off him. If you've got him, you can keep him. Obviously, his break even's still in the green there, which is a good sign. But um, yeah, I wouldn't do too much else with that. So Mawale, so I've got him as a sell. He's just not getting the minutes, even if everyone's out. He's playing that impact sort of forward role that a few clubs like to roll with. Murdoch Masilla, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with him, but he's a sell if you got him. Pele is a sell if you can. Like again, it's probably waiting for Isaac next week. But if you can make a move with those guys to get rid of them, they're just going to become auto emergency nightmares. So that's why they're sells more than holds or waits, is because they're just not going to produce the points when they are on the field. And Cohen Hess, I've got him as a sell as well. You know, his break even is now up around his average, so um, yeah, there's no need to keep him. You can probably do better. Options like Kepi or Croker even would make you money and obviously make you points on field too if you were so inclined. So into the second row. So first one there is Hudson Young in the premium 600k plus range. He does have a nice break even, so there's a bit of money to be made there, but I'm going to pass. I just think there's better options than him. Brenton Nakora, so I've got him as the super pod. Looked just before the start of the video, only in 2% of sides. He's averaging 79 across the year, 90 over the last 3 rounds. Nico Hines is back. So yeah, you could do a lot worse than bring in Brenton Nakora if you haven't got him, which would be the case for 98% of you out there. Kaloa Matangi from South, so he's killing it as well, averaging 80. I'll put the gun symbol on him just because he's killing it. um, yeah, maybe a bit of a super pod too. I think he is more highly owned than Nakora. But yeah, those two are both great options, I think. John Bateman, he's on the bubble this week, so third game coming up. You can see there, probably was a bit harsh giving him the yellow. Um, so I should have mentioned as well with the colouring. So the green break even means that they're, more than 10 under their average, which would assume they're a good chance of hitting that. The yellow is within 10 either side, so give them the benefit of the doubt, account for some variance, that sort of thing. And the red is when their break even is more than 10 over their average, so chances are they're going to lose cash in the coming weeks. Yeah, so he's got a bit of money to make. He's a bit of a pot option. So yeah, if you're going to make a move now, would probably be the best time before his price goes up, and you got to find more money to get to him, perhaps. Fafita's on the buy. Dave Fafita from the Titans. So 690k. It's a bit of money to sit on the bench, but it's going to happen throughout the year. So no need to panic and trade him out. He'll be back next week. He'll be firing. He'll have the gun symbol there next to his name. Isaiah Yo, so the guy I missed out in last week's video. So averaging 68. He's a gun. Don't need to stress about bringing him anytime you want. Nanai suspended, so you could probably get rid of him. Use that money elsewhere. Olaquatu, he's a pot option. I guess him and Nanai I have been grouping together as sort of, can get over the stripe, which is good, but probably don't have the base to back it up. So, I guess that's where, Fafita's definitely making a few more runs and stuff this year, and his numbers are up. That's where these guys will be eventually, you'd hope, but just need to be putting in a bit more effort across the field, across the 80. Ryan Madison, so he's back. He's a gun. 74 last week. You got to pay up for him, obviously, but yeah, as long as he's in the side, you're cheering, you're getting points. Pat Carrigan, so a nice little pot option. Will dip in price a bit this week. I don't think the game against the Dolphins was his best in terms of SuperCoach scoring, but yeah, if you've got him, I wouldn't panic. Just you brought him in for that reason that he is a bit different than what most coaches would run with. Cam Murray, he's another gun. He's obviously struggling a bit, 3 round average of 54. I could understand if people wanted to sell, sort of get into something like a Nikora or, maybe even want to switch to John Bateman, Ryan Madison, even now that he's back. Um, yeah, so, but he's a gun. So, you try not to trade your keepers where you can. And Papali, so yeah, I've got him as a hold. Obviously, if you paid up for him, you paid for a reason. He's averaging 60, so he's not doing too much wrong. He's probably just not getting the attacking stats like he would he was at Parramatta. But yeah, if you wanted to sell, I totally understand that. Break even can be quite scary. And obviously at 772k, if you've got the luxury, I'd probably move to Nakora, enjoy that little price rise, and then evaluate it in a few weeks' time. So into the mid ranges, so between 4 and 600k, and I'm pretty sure there's actually 2 pages for this because there is a lot of options in that mid range. And so first one there is Zach Hosking. Had to give him a mention because of his 117 in his first game. I've put the wait symbol there just to wait and see, he plays this week and scores well again, then he's a definite buy for next week. Even if it's a cash grab to get, quick 150, 200k would be really good, would be amazing. Yeah, so that'd be good. Eli Katoa, so I've got him as a pot option, but look at that 3 round average, 84. Looks like he's really starting to hit his straps there at the Storm. Still got a lot of cash to make too. So for that reason, I've got him as a pot option, as a potential keeper in the future. Kurt Capewell, I've got as a pot option. I think there's better pot options than some of these guys, but I can definitely see why people would have them in. So giving them the credit where it's due. Ewan Aitken. So I've given him the DPP designation because obviously he has centre wing as well as second row. But because he is playing in the centres for the Dolphins, um, yeah, he's not one I would look at this moment in time. Liam Martin, so yeah, pot option 68. He's averaging of 2 games so far. And yeah, I guess we all know what a damaging ball runner he can be there on the edge. So yeah, if you want to bring him in, that wouldn't be an issue. Same with Teague Wilton. Obviously now Nico Hines is back. You can look at a lot of these Sharks players and expect their attacking output to increase. Um, just the amount of danger that he causes and the dimension he adds to that side is something different. Lachlan Fitzgibbon, so 578, a little bit more expensive, but is repaying the faith with the average there, 71 over the season. So here's a pot option. Tavanga, he's on the bubble, so 2 games back, averaging 66. Yeah, he's always an interesting option. He probably used to be more attractive when he was DPP, hooker second row, but it is what it is. Uh, so Hopgood, I've spelt Hopgood incorrectly, but on purpose, because the man's a genius, averaging 87 for the season. He's a gun. I think the only mid-range option I've designated as a gun, because yeah, as you can see, he's 548 already. Won't be too long. He'll be in the premium section of this video. And then Josh King, so the only one that didn't scrape into the green in terms of their break even, although as you can see, it is 10 off his 3 round average. And I guess his big average is based off that ton he got in the first round. So I know a lot of people have him as a pot option, but he could well be on the chopping block soon just because his cash generation is going to stall out. So then on to page 2, and this is where I guess things get a little bit more dramatic, for lack of a better term. But Luke Garner, if you've got him, you've got to chop him from the team. Um, yeah, especially if Hosking is back on that edge and this week and goes good. Garner could be on the bench for the foreseeable future. Nat Butcher, I do have him as a pod, and it's mostly down to his green break even there. But he is more expensive as well at 600k, so that's just something to be mindful of. Or just under, he obviously just qualified for the mid range section. But then Egan Butcher, Nia Kore from the Warriors, Viliami Kikau, as much as it hurts me to say, from the Bulldogs, and Jason Taumalolo from the Cowboys there. Or if you've got them, I think you have to get rid of them. They're just, there's better options. Nakoro's not getting 80 minutes. Kikau really needs that attack to work, and they're still working their way out of the Bulldogs. Tamalolo, I think he's more of a legend of the past that we pay tribute to. Um, and yeah, Egan Butcher, just the average is a bit disappointing so far, so I'd look elsewhere. And same thing with Victor Radley, so he's an avoid. I put the Roosters guys in here mostly because they're back from their bye this week, but yeah, maybe like other than that, Butcher, I don't have a lot of interest in there. Oh, I guess Brent Smith in their forward pack. Um, I don't think I even put any of their front rowers in. I'm not sure how relevant they are, but might be happy to be proven wrong. So then on to the cheapies. So Sean Bloor is, I guess, the one with the best break even of exactly 0. So I guess with him, I've put the hold or the pass. If you've got him, you can hang on to him for a week. If you haven't got him, I wouldn't go there just because he's on the bench. Papali and Bateman both sort of demand big minutes on the edge, so it looked like he was playing a bit in the middle. But how comfortable he is with that, doing that, for big minutes is yet to be seen. So the Cardi party, so Bryce Cartwright from the Eels. So I got the bunting out, the party's on. He's averaging 58, break even of 1. So if you picked him over Dury, you're absolutely cheering. I honestly thought he'd be the one to go first, but he is playing well on that left edge. And Madison's more of a right edge player anyway, so it probably was the right pick in hindsight. So yeah, party on. Um, in saying that, you probably should actually have the ship designation that I've given Cheekham and Preston. So they've still got a bit of money to make, but looking at their price, mid 300s for Cheekham, about 400 for Preston. Um, they could make another 150k or thereabouts, but um, yeah, they've made most of their money already. So yeah, put the ship sail on those, but I can see people bringing them in. Probably just probably not going to get the benefit that you would have a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, Matt Dury is another one. He's on the bench. He's still got a bit of money to make, so you can hold. You can pass on him if you want. There's no sweat there. So Ray Stone, Mason Teague, both from the Dolphins. I've got them as avoids. As you can see, their break even isn't that conducive when you look at their averages. And it's more the averages, I suppose, that would suggest that they're avoids. And then Jackson Ford. So I've got him as the best buy, as you can see there, out of the second row. So I guess it's a little bit deceptive when you look at, he's only averaging 45. He's only got a break even of 22. But he did have a 4 in his average due to a HIA. So that should actually disappear from his 3 round average next week. So you should see this 3 round average boost up, this break even drop way down. And then, he'll start making some serious cash. Playing 80 minutes on the edge of the Warriors. And as we've already said, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that pack. But if he's taken 80 of those minutes, that's great for us as super coaches. Trent Arrow is a hold. You know, he's one I've got in my team. And I've toyed around with maybe flipping him to Ford. But I think you can hold him. He's still going to make a bit of cash. Um, yeah, I mean, if he's the one to go for Ford, I wouldn't be too upset. But I'd definitely have, the likes of Dury, Blore out before him. Maybe one of those other guys we talked about chopping. If you've got one of them, that'd be the way I'd look to get Ford in. So into the halfbacks. So I've gone with premium being 500 plus, but I guess in reality, we've got the two guns at either end of the scale here, a few pot options, and then everyone else I'd avoid. So Nico Hines, first of all, average of 180, which means he's got a break even of 6. He's an absolute gun. All right, I mean, whether he's the best buy for this round depends on your situation. I've obviously brought him in last round, so got the 180. Unfortunately, my head-to-head opponent captained him, so I missed out on the 360. But yeah, I mean, if you think about your trades this week and you've got the money to bring in Hines, like you've got an Adam Reynolds or a Walker or a Hughes, someone at that sort of price point. So it's only 200k jump, or 300k, I guess, in the case of Walkers, maybe a bit harder to get to. But if you can do it, there's no harm. But if there's a trade that you can, or a couple of trades you can make that are more important in terms of your cash generation, you can wait because obviously Hines will play his second game this week. He'll then have the bye in round 6. So it actually gives you another 2 weeks to try and find the funds to go up to Nico Hines. So you don't have to have it all this week. You can spend a couple more weeks making cash and then make that trade. I guess the trade off is, potentially losing points, but if you pick a couple of players, like say, let's go with a Ford and um, just trying to think of someone else maybe on the hit list. Well, let's say Josh Schuster is a popular trade in this week, and they can score 60 points each over the next 2 weeks. All right, so that gives you the 120 points. So obviously, if Hines blows up again and gets another 120 plus score, you might miss out on the points this week. But if he scores an 80, which is still a great score, You've actually made more points over the 2 weeks on those cheaper players, made more money to then be able to afford Hines. So it's just something you need to think about. Um, yeah, especially buying 1 week before the buy, his price isn't going to change. Um, yeah, if obviously if they didn't have a buy next week, you could go early and get him in. That'd be sweet. But yeah, it's just about what works best for you. And at this time of year, there's so much money to be made. I'd be more inclined to hold and make that money. But he is a gun, and as we said with guns, you can bring him in at every time, any time, whether they're making money, losing money, doing whatever, and they'll be okay because they'd score points. So Sean Johnson, got him as a pod. Especially when you look at that price, he's only just over 500k. To be fair, probably should have had the premium high halfback price a little bit higher. But it's just the way it worked out with trying to fit him on the 2 pages. I think was the main factor there. That's why I went with 500. But yeah, he's a great pot option. Um, Particularly if you're not gonna have Hines, he can make a bit of money, which could help that in a couple of weeks' time. Um, Jerome here, so he's still suspended for another week. So yeah, if you want to upgrade him to Hines, that's cool. If you want to go down to SJ, that's fine. A couple of other options coming up as well. So Adam Reynolds, so I've got him here with the trap symbol. So I can't believe how many people bought him in last week, and then were disappointed when he didn't score that well. Yeah, so that's Adam Reynolds. He kicks goals. He occasionally gets involved with a few try assists and the like, few forced dropouts. But he's not a big runner of the football. So he doesn't have those sort of attacking stats and things like tries and line breaks. Um, not as much as these other guys like Hines, Cleary, even DC. He likes to run the ball. So for that reason, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near him. And to those of you that did, hopefully you've learnt a very important lesson. So Sam Walker, I've got him as a pod, but again, he's probably the last one out of the options that I would go with. Um, I know a lot of people were sort of holding off to, you know, wait for him to play his buy and then flip to Hines and did that successfully. So fair play to you. But yeah, it is what it is. Mitchell Moses, I've given him the chop symbol just because that high break even. His average is a bit lower, although 3 round average of 55 suggests that maybe it was just his first game that was really flat. But the high break even also suggests that he's not worth the money that he's currently sitting on. And again, if you want to try to get up to a Hines, you want to jump off and there's only 230 to be made instead of 300 plus. Sean O'Sullivan, he's a sell. Unfortunately, pec injury, so he is out for a long time. Not that he was the highest averaging halfback to begin with, but just wanted to shout out him. Ben Hunt, so I've got him as a chop as well, just again, high break even. Although then hypocritically, I've got DC as a pod, but you can see DC's average is much higher than Hunt, so even if he is leaking a bit of cash, you're still getting the points. So that's what we're after. And then I guess even more paradoxically, I've given Nathan Cleary the gun symbol. He is a gun. That's the reason why he is so highly priced. Across the season, he'll definitely float up towards the top of the list in terms of averages. Um, but yeah, Penrith have just had a bit of a slow start. But once they turn around, I'm sure Cleary will be the man behind most of it. So then to the cheaper options, so anything less than 500k at halfback. So Jonah Pezzett is the best option in terms of break even, negative 82. He's been really impressive. He's on the bubble this week, so this is the last week before his price rises. But just be aware, Jerome Hughes is back next week, and then after that, we might not see Pezzett until Origin. Um, or even worse or more scary, I suppose we could see him on the bench for the Storm, and that never works out well in terms of points. And then obviously the cash generation dries up so fast. Um, Yeah, so Braden Trindle, so I've got the chop symbol on him, even though he's got a massively negative break even. I know he's been sort of floating around the bench sort of spot for the Sharks, which means his points are going to dry up, which means he'll make a bit of cash, but then that'll peak very quickly. So, um, yeah, I mean, you probably can't afford to hold in this sort of position. If you're going a cheaper option, you've got a couple of options around him. I think, yeah, you just got to get out and make that cash a bit quicker. Brandon Wakeham, so he's another one on the bubble. So his second game wasn't as good as his first game. So just keep that in mind in terms of his break even at -7. That 50 something I got in round four. No, sorry, round three. That'll drop out of his average first, so the break even will jump up quicker. So, out of the two bubble boys, I'd prefer Pezzett. But the option I actually prefer more than both of them is Katoa. So 258k. He's only averaging 38, but with Sean O'Sullivan out, it sounds like he'll slide into number 7 and Milford will play 6. So, a bit of an opportunity to lead the team around. Could, potentially lead to some more attacking stats. For Katoa, definitely more involvement, um, just because he has to step up, I think, and take on that main role. So I've got the cash cow symbol there for him. He's going to hopefully make some good money in the coming weeks. But he is also available at 5'8" too, so that's the other advantage with Katoa. Tanner Boyd, so he's still got a nice break even relative to his average, but he's on the bye this week. Um, and yeah, I've cut him from the team just because the average wasn't quite where we wanted it to be. And obviously got in Nico Hine, so I'm cheering about that. Tyson Gamble, so got the DPP symbol there, so it could be an option at 5'8" as well. Um, yeah, if you want it. Ilias, I've given him the chop, so he had a good first week, but the 3 round average, as you can see, he's dips way back. Flanagan, giving him the chop as well. Matt Burton was back kicking goals on the weekend, so maybe there was just a slight injury for Matt Burton against the Tigers. Um, and yeah, Flanagan needs to go. And Jackson Hastings, so he gets his own symbol. He gets the riding crop symbol or the flog symbol, just because just the more for the post game antics as opposed to the on field action. But as you can see there, he's got a pretty sort of bad break even to average ratio there. So less said the better. So on to the premium 5/8s and um, yeah, so I went with 550k here. When it was 500, there was quite a few more options, um, but there's a lot of them between 500 and 550 as it turns out. So I thought maybe just to designate the difference a bit better, we'd go to 550. But as you can see, there's not a lot to talk about here. Adam Dewey, I've got him as a hold or a sell. I mean, the reason why I went with Dewey over Matt Burton was that he does like to run the ball, can break tackles because of his size. And playing fullback, he's going to get more runs. He's going to get more touches on the ball because he's not sitting on one side of the field. But there is that risk of rotation with Dane Laurie sitting on the bench. So, if you hold, that's fine. If you sell, that's fine. It's really personal preference uh, about which way we go with that. Ezra Mam, so I've got him as a bit of a roller coaster pick. So, looking at his average and 3 round average, you might think, oh, it's fairly consistent, but, it's either, he seems to score really well or score really low. And the break even suggests that too. The fact that it's at 97 means that, the average is probably made up of a bit of a higher score to start with. Dylan Brown, so he's a gun, 3 round average of 80. Um, I think most people would suggest that him and Munster are the top two in that position. So if you can get to them by the end of the season, you're doing well. Um, and I'm starting to think with the other options falling by the wayside, trying to save a bit of money in this position that I might have to get to Dylan Brown sooner rather than later. Sorry, jumped the gun there. Brimson, he's a sell. I think he's out injured from memory. That's why I had him as a sell. Um, yeah, but also averaging 46 at that price, you don't want to borrow that. So I'd get out of that pick. And Cam Munster, so averaging 72, he's a gun. He'll drop a bit in price, so it might be a good opportunity to sit and wait, grab him in a few weeks, or I think probably the preferred option is just to wait the origin period out and then jump on him then. So then mid-range cheapies. So as you can see, there's quite a few with a 5 at the start of their name. So they could have appeared on the premium slide, but I thought just to mix it up a bit. Josh Schuster, I've got him as the best buy, obviously with that nice negative break even. His average isn't fantastic, but his dual position, he's near bottom dollar. He'll make some good money. So I think if you're looking to bring in a 5/8 option, you can bring him in. I'm probably thinking more the second row for him. But, I guess having all these dual position players makes it a bit hard to really nail down where they should sit on this list. Tamari Martin, so TMM, is Tamari Martin from the Warriors. Solid enough average when you consider the price. Nice break even, but I'm going to pass. I just think, yeah, there's other options I prefer and feel more confident in the pick. Um, one of which is Matt Burton. So, a bit regretful I traded him out now. I should have saved the trade. But, yeah, he's a pot option if you've got him. I wouldn't worry. Same with Cody Walker. So, the 3 round average is up, which suggests, he's done all right recently. Um, nice pot option. He's always there or thereabouts in terms of top 5/8s, and even at parts of the season, he's the top averaging over 3-5 rounds. So not the worst one to get on. Kieran Foran, so he's got the Mr. Burns old man symbol um, as a bit of an homage to DR and his AFL Supercoach stock market. But yeah, don't go near Kieran Foran. He's only there for the Mr. Burns symbol. Tommy Dearden, a bit of an extreme pod, and I guess it's just when you line him up with Burton, Cody Walker, similar sort of average. Um, but then, I've got Luke Keary, around, same average, same price, but he's a pass just because of his concussion history issues. It's a bit of a risk to hold him in the team. Same thing with Milf. He's obviously got job security now, but he is a pass. Because that average is probably about right. Jack White suspended, so get out of Jack White if you've got him. And Jerome Luai, he's a sell. Um, really struggling on that left edge without kick out off his hip. Um, he will eventually improve on this average, but won't be a keeper. He's going to lose money, so I'd get out of the pick now. Especially there's a few better options to choose from. Onto the centre wing. So apologies if you can't quite see the bottom of the screen. I think most of them are just okay, but there is quite a few to get through. That's what happens when you've got 7 slots to fill. So in terms of the premiums, Lachlan Miller from the Knights is first. So 3 round average of 84, break even of 0. A really nice pot option. I know. He had quite an elevated average from his few games at the Sharks. But from what I can tell, that's holding true to form at the Knights. He's kicking goals as well, which is a really nice boost to his average as well, or his score, I should say. So yeah, if you've got the money and you've got the resources, I'd bring him in for sure. Another potential pot option is Jesse Ramian. So a few of these um, Sharks players are going to feature. And yeah, it might seem a bit counterintuitive to have Ramian as a pod, Ronaldo as a pass. I just think Ronaldo probably relies a bit more on tries from what I can gather. But yeah, not super keen on either of them, if I'm being completely honest. Probably a bit generous given Ramian the pod option. Meany, so he is a pod option at the moment. Keeping in mind, Pappenhausen's only a few weeks away, in which case, his average will start to dip. So, yeah, if you want the points over the next few weeks and you're willing to burn two trades, that's fine. If you've got him in, obviously hang on to him. There's no point getting rid of him just yet. But yeah, if you haven't got him, it's whether you're willing to use two trades to get him in, but then also get back out of the trade or get out of the pick once Pappenhausen's back up and running. Brian Tyre, so I've got the bases there because he's the base stat beast. He might have a challenger this season. But yeah, just looking at his stats so far, that average of 56 is pretty much pure base. Um, no tries, no line breaks, anything like that just yet. So once he does, obviously that will spike. So yeah, you know, get on if you want to, and wait for the tries to come in. So Val Holmes, Campbell Graham, I've got them as guns. You know, they're probably in the top five conversation for the position. So um, yeah, if you've got them, you can hang on to them. If you don't, you can bring them in whenever. It's no stress really. Um, Jacob Carraz, I've got him as a must-have though, because look at that three-round average, 101, averaging 88 for the season. That's just unreal. Just doing work, but then getting on the end of tries. So I think yeah, he's like Brian Tyro, but actually getting attacking stats. Like tackle breaks, line breaks, offloads, all of that. Reuben Garrick, he's a gun as well, so you can bring him in anytime you want. He's obviously quite expensive, but he's worth it. Again, like we said with Karazzi, he runs, he scores tries, he kicks goals, which is a bonus. Um, yeah, so I guess, if I had to rank the three guns or the four guns, maybe a bit of bias, but I do have Karaz at number one, then Garrick, Holmes at three, Campbell Graham at four. Um, and I guess personal preference, I'd probably actually even have Tyre over Graham. Um, so if I had Tyre, Holmes, Karaz, Garrick at the end of the year, I'd be pretty stoked. Maybe even get out of a Val and into a Lockie Miller. Might be it just depends on the time of the year and who's doing what price wise. So yeah, there's quite a few options, which is good. And so for that reason, I've got Alex Johnston, Mike Acevo, Joseph Manu, all on the chopping block. They're just going to lose money. Um, Johnson and Sevo do rely a lot on tries. Manu, his price is elevated from playing a lot of fullback and 5'8" at times last year. Um, so if he moves back to those positions, obviously this conversation changes completely. But until such time, you can get out of the pick, and it's probably one that I'd be willing to trade out and trade back in if he does get that positional switch. So under the mid ranges, so Jackson Paulo is at the top with a negative break even of 34. So I got the cash grab symbol on him. Just if you want to make a quick buck, Jackson Paulo could do that for you. I suppose Montoya could as well, but I did go with the ships that sailed on that, just because I think he's already made quite a lot of cash, and I don't know, you can see the 3-round average is a bit above the average there, so um, he as those higher scores roll out of his average, the cash generation is going to stall. Greg Marzu, so I've got the weight symbol on him. He's another one who's played one game and absolutely blown it up, but we do know his pedigree. He loves to run and break tackles and can get over the stripe. So he's definitely a wait and see. He could be a sneaky pot option next week. Tony Staggs, so, he's always a pot option, but he's also a bit of a roller coaster. Could have used the roller coaster symbol here. So, if you're getting on now, you're holding for a while. Hayes Perham is another sneaky pot option. I guess, a lot of people, including myself, were scared off him in the preseason because of his trial form. But he really hasn't put a foot wrong at fullback for the Dogs. So, yeah, if I had a couple extra trades, I'd like to try and find a way to get him in because he's still going to make a bit of cash. He's scoring enough points, but you know, it is what it is. Cobbo, he's another pot option, but probably lower on the list just due to the fact he's stuck out on the wing. He's a bit reliant on tries to boost that score. So probably not the number one pot option I would go with. So Jermaine Osako, so he has made a lot of money, but you can see the break even starting to creep up now. The 3 round average is a bit down from the season. So I think the ship has sailed on that as an option. Definitely more so than Montoya. The Hammer, so I've got him as a pod just because he's super involved at fullback. And yeah, you can see his average is suggesting that 65 last 3 rounds, 68 overall. So yeah. Jake Averillo, so even though he's still got a positive break even in terms of the ratio with his averages, got the chop symbol on him just because there's so many options that are going to make more money. So yeah, I think he can cut and run on Averillo if you did have him. I don't think a lot of people do, but it was more the 3 round average I think that got me involved in that conversation. The Fox, so just got the runaway Fox there. He scored a nice try against the Warriors, just burnt them on the outside. Love to see it as a Dogs fan. But I don't think he's really an option. He would have the pass symbol on if he didn't have his own symbol, essentially. Yeah, might have to try and work it. Let's trot in there as well. Talakai, passing on him. He's just doing what his price suggests he would. And Swiley, so I've actually just put these two together. So the ship sailed, he's off to rugby. So that's just more of an inside joke there than anything else. So under the cheap options, so Khan Pereira, because I can't pronounce his first name. Apologies again. Another Titans player that I can't get the name right. Massive game last weekend, so he's got a wicked break even of -70. He's on the bye this week, so you don't need to bring him in this week. Wait a week. There's better options to bring in this week if you want to bring in a cheap centre wing. And then definitely get on next week if you haven't got him and want to, grab that cash real quick. Vialia, so he's on the bubble this week, played 2 games. He obviously had a massive game against the Dogs. But that also suggests he also had a not so good game the week before. So, if you're looking for a quick bit of cash, you could get on this week, flip to Khan Pereira next week, perhaps, something like that. Warbrick, so finally got over the stripe, so he's going to make some nice cash over the next couple of weeks while that's in his 3 round average. It was unfortunate for everyone that had him and Khan Pereira on the bench, such as myself, but we had them in the team more to make money than to necessarily score us points on field. Paul Alamotti, so he's making cash as well. We're happy with him. Taruva, same thing. But then you'll see I've snuck in there Lemuelu as the best buy in the centre wing. So, like I said, if you're looking at Khan Pereira at that price and you're thinking, I want to get him in to make that money, I'd honestly actually go Lemuelu. So he's still playing 80 minutes on that edge while Felice Kafusi's out. And even then, when Felice Kafusi comes back, I feel like Kenny Bromwich is going to do a bit more of like playing in lock and in the middle. And Lemuelu could very well hold his spot on the edge. So he'll actually get dual position status after this week's game. So, before round 6, it's already been confirmed that he will be center row, second row forward. This video must be going too long. I'm starting to lose my ability to speak. So yeah, he's the one I'd get out of these cheap options this week if you had to pick one. Obviously, if you're a bit strapped for cash and you haven't got an Alamotti or a Warbrick, you can get them in, even a Taruva, but this is the guy I would be targeting. Isaac Thompson, so just because there's so much money being made here in the centre wing, got to give him the chop. That average will improve. He will have a spike game. and I guess I'm always or not really there to say to get on or get off based on a few quiet games, but yeah, Souths have had a tough draw, um, so it is excusable that his average isn't there. But there's just you see the other averages and break evens and projected cashes. You've got to get out of the pick, I think. So Tyrell Sloan, so I got him as a hold. Obviously, he didn't have his best game against the Sharks, but I don't think there's too many people on the Dragons squad that could say they did. So, it's just a blip in the radar. His cash generation will stall for a bit, but he'll kick again, so we'll just hang on. Remus Smith, though, was a sell. You can't average 28 in the centre wing when there's, so much going on around. He's losing cash, and he only started at about 313k, so get out of that if you can. And CNK, so hold, so he's in the same boat as Jackson Ford. Um, I should have said Charles Nickel Clockstad from the Warriors. Use the full name. Um, yeah, he has a HIA average that's about to get out of his 3 round average. So you'll see next week this number will spike, the break even will go down, and he'll be back on the cash train. So if you've got him, hold on to him. If you haven't, you could probably wait a week and then look to trade him in next week if you're so inclined. So then on to the fullbacks. So Tommy Chester's on the bubble this week. Just be mindful that Drinkwater should be back from suspension next week, which would suggest that you're only going to get one price rise out of Chester unless something else goes completely awry at the Cowboys. Um, so yeah, probably not the right position to be making money if we're being honest. And as you can see from the other options, there's a lot of guns and pods that we could be going, trying to double barrel the fullback. Or the other option, which is what I've gone with, is trying to use all those centre wing fullback dual cheapies to try and generate cash that way with their added job security. So Reece Walsh, pod option, still averaging 95. Um, yeah, he's sort of very dangerously close to getting the guns status, but um, just want to maybe see a couple more weeks of consistency before I believe. Tommy Turbo, I don't need to see any more though. He's a gun. Obviously, didn't have his best game on the weekend, but yeah, everyone has a bad time every now and again. Dylan Edwards, I do have him as a pod, but it's a very reluctant one. Again, Penrith, slow start to the season. Um, yeah, he really does rely on the attack to be firing to get a lot of the boost in his average. Um, but Will Kennedy is definitely a pod I do believe in. So, I guess Kennedy and Walsh would squeeze in the top five um, fullback options alongside the three guns for me. Uh, and yeah, he's someone that you'd love to have in the team, but it's just hard when there's so many great players in that position. Um, so yeah, so not for me at the moment, but maybe around Origin is definitely the time to target that sneaky sort of pot action. Gutho, I think he's a chop. His average is below the guns, um, or not all the guns, I suppose, but there's definitely options that are doing better at the moment, and he has a bit more cash on him than most, so I'd get out of the Gutho pick. Um, Also, I guess there was a report this week in the media that they're looking for a fullback out at Parramatta, which doesn't bode well for Gutho, unfortunately. Teddy and Trell, both guns, obviously high break evens, so if you don't have them, you can wait to bring them in. Um, but yeah, if you've got them, just keep them. I can't say too much. I did trade out Teddy, but that's just because of my ordinary start to the season. All right, and so there's the SuperCoach stock market for round 5. Um, give us a comment if there's someone I didn't include. Like I said before, I think I didn't consider many of the front rowers from the Roosters, for example. Uh, but I think there's a lot of them are just very middling in value. Um, so I didn't think they were worth considering. But yeah, anyone else you wanted to talk about, um, if you do like this style of video, give it a like. Like I said, the reason why I wanted to produce something like this is I found it very informative, the AFL version of this with DR. So hopefully, this helps people too making their decisions. Um, if you want to keep up to date with this and all the other videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel um, and get around all those. And other than that, I think I've said enough. So I'll see you in the next one.